November 1981. Manila was a city simmering with restless ambition. Its streets heavy under a humid tropical sky. The thick air was charged not just with moisture, but with the electric pulse of a nation racing toward a grand vision. You can almost feel it. The dust stirred by thousands of feet. The scent of diesel fumes and wet concrete mixing in the oppressive heat. The city was alive with tension, as if the very earth beneath it held its breath. At the heart of this fever dream was Imelda Marcos, the First Lady, a woman whose name was synonymous with extravagance and power. She envisioned a cultural palace unlike any in Asia, a monument to art, film, and the Marcos legacy. The Manila Film Center was to be that shining jewel. Now imagine yourself walking through the vast construction site, where floodlights stab the night sky and the clang of steel on steel drowns out all other sounds. The air vibrates with urgency. Workers move like ghosts, their faces slick with sweat and fear. This was not just a building, it was a symbol of pride, ambition, and a dark promise that would soon be broken. Racing against time. The Philippines was preparing to host its very first international film festival, a grand event designed to place the nation on the global cultural map. But the pressure was immense, almost unbearable. The deadline was unforgiving. Just 4 months to build a sprawling, state-of-the-art complex that would rival the world's finest. Usually, a project like this would take years, meticulous planning, cautious construction, careful safety checks. But now, time was a ruthless enemy. Picture this: over 0 workers thrust into a ceaseless storm of labor, working around the clock in shifts that blurred night into day. The roar of heavy machinery filled the air, punctuated by shouted commands and the relentless hammering of steel on steel. The floodlights burned hot, casting long shadows across sweat-drenched faces. Safety was a distant afterthought, a whispered joke among exhausted men. There were no breaks, no rest, only the incessant drive. Keep going, the show must go on. Imagine the crushing weight of exhaustion settling deep into every bone. The growing fear that one misstep could bring everything crashing down. Warnings ignored. As the frantic construction pushed forward, cracks began to whisper warnings, subtle signs that something was terribly wrong. The scaffolding groaned under impossible strain. Steel beams bent and twisted like paper, and the foundations began to tremble ever so slightly. Workers shared uneasy glances, exchanging hushed conversations about the danger lurking beneath their feet. But these warnings were silenced, dismissed by those in power who demanded speed over safety. Imagine the fear simmering just beneath the surface, the dread in the eyes of the men who knew the risks but dared not speak out. The political stakes were sky high. Imelda Marcos's reputation depended on this building. The festival's success was a matter of national pride. Every worker, every supervisor was caught in a relentless machine fueled by ambition and desperation. The very ground beneath them betrayed their efforts, cracking slowly as if warning of the disaster to come. You can almost hear the ominous creak of stressed beams, the quiet before the storm, a storm no one was ready for. The night of disaster. In the early hours of November 17, 1981, just after 3 a.m., the night held its breath. The humid air was thick, heavy with tension. Then came the sound, low, terrifying, and unmistakable. The metal scaffolding of the West Wing began to buckle, groaning under the unbearable weight. It was a sound like the death rattle of the building itself. And then, with no warning, the structure collapsed in a thunderous roar. Tons of wet concrete and twisted steel fell like a tidal wave, swallowing dozens of workers alive. Screams pierced the air for a brief, harrowing moment before being drowned out by the suffocating weight of concrete. Imagine standing at the edge of the disaster, the ground trembling beneath your feet, dust choking your lungs, and the fading cries of those trapped beneath ringing in your ears. Time froze. The nightmare began. Buried alive. Some workers survived the initial collapse, but only to face a far crueler fate. Trapped beneath thick, cold cement, they found themselves buried alive. Imagine the crushing terror of being swallowed by darkness. The wet concrete pressing cold and unforgiving against your skin. You claw, you scream, but the slurry hardens, turning flesh and bone into stone. The muffled cries echoed in the suffocating silence, desperate hands pounding from beneath the surface. You can almost taste the dust in the air, feel the weight of the earth pressing down, hear the distant shouts of rescue workers just beyond your reach. Every second ticks by like a lifetime. Hope fades with every breath. The order to seal. Rescue teams scrambled to save lives, digging frantically through the rubble. But then, a chilling order arrived from the highest levels. The site had to be cleared before dawn. Foreign dignitaries were due, and appearances had to be kept flawless. The decision was made to pour more cement to seal the pit forever. Imagine the helplessness as the wet concrete covered the desperate hands, silencing the screams that no one wanted to hear. The lives of the workers were sacrificed on the altar of pride and politics. The festival goes on. January 1982 arrived, and the Manila International Film Festival opened on time. Hollywood stars smiled, cameras flashed, champagne flowed. The world celebrated a shining moment for the Philippines. Beneath the glittering floors and joyous laughter, a dark secret festered. Dozens of workers remained entombed, their lives stolen by ambition's cruel race. The contrast was stark. A festival of glamour built on tragedy and silence. Imagine walking those halls, the echoing laughter above masking the horror below. Hauntings and whispers. From that day forward, the film center was never the same. Guards spoke of footsteps in empty corridors, strange hammering noises at odd hours, and cold spots where the temperature dropped inexplicably. Visitors reported sudden chills, whispers on the wind, and the faint smell of wet cement lingering in the air. Imagine wandering those halls alone at night, heart pounding, senses sharpened, feeling the weight of unseen eyes watching. The ghosts of those lost refused to be forgotten, haunting the place where their lives were stolen. The hidden truth. Officially, only 7 workers died. But whispers tell a far darker story. Families and survivors claim many more dozens, possibly hundreds lost in the collapse and subsequent cover-up. Newspapers were silenced, the media censored. The truth was buried deeper than any concrete ever could. Imagine the crushing weight of that silence, injustice pressing down through decades, stories waiting to be told. How many voices were stolen? How many lives erased? The questions linger in the shadows. Legacy of shadows. Today, the Manila Film Center still stands, weathered but unforgotten. Cracked walls and creeping vines tell the tale of ambition's cost. It is used for plays, storage, and whispered ghost stories. If you find yourself near its shadowed halls after dark, listen closely. You might hear faint tapping, soft murmurs, restless whispers of those who never left. Because some monuments aren't built on land or stone, they are built on graves. As the shadows of the Manila Film Center linger in the night, so too do the stories of those lost to ambition's unforgiving grasp. Their voices, silenced beneath concrete and stone, remind us that behind every monument of glory lies a human cost, often forgotten, often hidden. If this story stirred something inside you, whether it was sorrow, curiosity, or a hunger to uncover truths buried in darkness, then you've come to the right place. Here, on this channel, we don't just tell stories. We breathe life into the forgotten. We listen to the whispers of the past, and we bring light to the shadows that history tries to hide. So, if you want to walk deeper into the mysteries of our world, to explore the true tales that linger in the corners of forgotten places, I invite you to join this journey. Like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story that matters. Thank you for listening, for remembering, and for staying curious. Until next time, Beware the silence because sometimes it's the loudest voice of all.